You ready to do this, Stu?
I am ready! Punch it, Chewie!
Welcome back, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Stu Jones.
101!
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 101. Welcome back. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear hole. Stu, last week, the big 100, it was a huge celebration. I gotta tell you, that actually probably my favorite episode I think I've done out of all of them, and for a number of different reasons. One, we had a lot of good laughs. And a lot of good laughs at your expense a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for that. That has echoed around the internet far greater than I ever expected.
I loved having Steve back. It'd been such a long time, and I loved to hear the interaction between the two of you. You guys had never really talked before, but you guys seemed to have a natural rapport, and what the Super Friends didn't see was that my audio crapped out, and there was about a 20-minute down period where I was rebooting my computer, and I listened back to your audio and just listened to you guys like talking back and forth and having a conversation like you guys had known each other for years. It was kind of cool. And then, of course, my biggest love of that episode was we had so much interaction from our Super Friends. Like, so many people came out, left us messages, and here's the thing. We had so many people reach out after the episode, or while they were listening to that episode, because it was a big episode.
It was a little long in the tooth.
Yes, just a little. But I had a lot of people reach out to me personally or through our social media saying, congratulations, that they listened to it, that they loved it, or, that they were really happy. Some really nice, kind words from a lot of people after the fact, after they'd listened to it. And it just really made me happy to kind of hear all that, because of course, we love what we do. That's why we're here. Mm-hmm. But it's nice to hear that other people love and appreciate it as well.
There was something additional beyond all of that I took away from the episode, and this may sound a little strange, but it made me realize what big shoes I was filling and what a responsibility I have to the show. While we have a chemistry, you and I, listening to you and Steve, there were a couple times that I definitely felt like a third wheel, and it wasn't that I wasn't welcome to the conversation or something. It was just like, you guys have this natural rapport from knowing each other forever.
Right.
And there was just so much there that, I almost felt a little bad that I had the spot, and like thinking if Steve was ever able to come back to the show, that would make sense. And it was just like the two of you were so natural, but that I am running the show now, that for the first time at episode 100, after doing 30 some odd episodes, that was the first time I really felt like I was carrying a true mantle in that sense. It was really great to meet Steve. I loved the conversation when you were blacked out there. That was all Steve. That was Steve leading the conversation, and he's a natural with that. And he was digging into questions and starting conversations. It was pretty amazing. I loved getting a chance to actually talk with him and actually have some off the air time to discuss. And I actually hung around for a little while longer after the show than I usually do. So that was a lot of fun. But it was in the planning of the episode. It was, hey, this is a big thing. It was actually awe-inspiring being in the moment and listening to it again after the post-production stuff. And that was a lot of fun. I'm so glad we got to do that. And I'm so glad that we got to share and have the Super Friends share with us their moments from that.
Yes. To your point, if Steve ever wanted to come back, of course I would welcome him back. He's a brother and I love him. And, he was, started this with me. But man, I couldn't imagine doing this without you, Stu. And so I know Steve's schedule, and I know the likelihood of that ever happening is very, very, very low. But if he ever said, "Hey, I want to come back every once in a while," I'd say sure, but it would never be a replacement scenario. Like I can't imagine going forward without you.
No. I'm not saying I'm worried about that. It's just the thought that, I mean, you and he definitely have something that comes from a lifetime of friendship and brotherhood.
So before we move on, usually at this point, Stu, I say, "Hey, how was your week? Tell me about it." But before we do that, I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Oh no.
And we're going to listen to a voicemail, and then we will talk.
No.
So let's go ahead and listen to that voicemail that I won't let you listen to prior right now.
Hey, Spencer, it's Ellie. I wanted to let you know that I've survived the bad luck of being mentioned on the podcast as Stu's girlfriend and then falling off the planet. So here's to week 2. Hopefully many more as well. And I think Stu may have mentioned it already that he was going to be out of town for the weekend. I kind of borrowed him. And while I'm sending him back to you in one piece, I'm pretty sure that once he gets there, he's still going to be completely worn out. So be nice to him for episode 101 and make sure that he has a cup of coffee before you all get started.
So, Stu, do you have a cup of coffee there? Or do you feel like you're ready to really record episode 101?
I need it. I need coffee. I need gin. I need beer. What have you done?
So no. I had a real interesting weekend, and part of that weekend, and then we'll loop back here to you, was that I got this voicemail, and it was Ellie, and she left this message, and I was like, okay, this came in. I'm like, I don't know if she wants this played on the podcast, because we have had people that have sent us messages to ask us a question or tell us something, and so I messaged her back, and I said, hey, is this okay if I play this? She's like, yeah, that's totally fine. And then her and I texted back and forth on and off for probably about the next hour, and we both agree that I wish I would have videoed that 4-minute segment during episode 100, because your face during that time period was probably my favorite part of that whole episode, and she got quite the kick out of it as well, from what I heard. But
oh yeah, quite a bit.
You tell me, Stu. You were gone this weekend in Fort Knoxville. How was your week?
It's all right. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's do the play-by-play. To be honest, it was good. It was a lot of good time. I'm even wearing a bracelet now that you can see. This is a thing. These are things that she makes, and they're called chain. Yeah, there you go. Obligatory. She makes these little chainmail things, and she does stuff like bookmarks and whatnot. And she got Morgana-some stuff. And anyway,
so can I ask you a real quick question? Then I'll let you go back.
Oh god.
Are you now? Is that like a promise bracelet?
This is to keep her on the podcast.
Does she have the other half of that promise bracelet? And if you put them together, you become Captain Planet?
Something happens.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So you got a bracelet. She makes these bracelets.
No, I don't. No, this is a big deal. Okay, so mock me all you like here, but I don't wear jewelry. I never.
Anytime your woman puts bling on you, it's a big deal. I got it. You're a kept man. I know how it goes.
I don't wear. Actually, it was my choice. I asked her for something because she does really good work. She's actually got an Etsy shop and all this other stuff. But I asked her for something, and she showed me like the bracelets that she makes and whatnot, and it actually kind of fits. It's the red and black. It's kind of my motif with the vet and everything else, and it's actually really comfortable. It's not obtrusive. So no, it's really good. And yes, I'm totally avoiding anything important in that conversation. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. I actually had other things actually happen before I spent time with Ellie this last week. I mean, we had the episode 100 stuff. I don't recall much of anything else now, though, that I've heard the voicemail, and I'm sort of all on the hook. But let me tell you about my little adventure, though, because as much as the time I spent was awesome, this started at Friday night at midnight. This was when I was supposed to hop on a plane. The plane was supposed to leave about 12:30. We're all on the plane, and at 12:30, the time we were supposed to leave, we're told there's a fuel pump problem on the plane. The plane is no longer serviceable. We are not leaving on that plane.
Ooh.
So we all get off the plane, and they're like, oh, yeah, we'll try to get another plane over, blah, blah, blah. And they were telling us it would take about 3 to 4 hours to get resolved.
What?
As we're all sitting in the airport. Because it's last flight of the night.
Okay,
there are no more flights. So they actually find another similar plane that had come in or whatever. They get it refueled and whatnot. So we left earlier than the 3 or 4 hours, but it was like we were there for about an hour and a half. So I fly overnight to a connecting flight in North Carolina. We land 15 minutes after my plane leaves.
Oh.
So sitting there, I had a 4-hour layover in Charlotte, North Carolina, which when you're not planning for a layover is pretty crap.
Uh-huh.
And then, so basically out of a day and a half kind of thing, 5 hours of my life were kind of just taken away, and I got to sit in an airport the whole time. Weekend happens. Everything's fantastic. I am worn out, in fact. Thank you, Ellie. I get home, arrive about 11 o'clock last night, and my car has a key fob for remote entry.
Sure.
I'm not thinking anything about it. I've got it in my backpack. No big deal. I have my backpack in hand, open the trunk of my car. It opens because I'm within range for the fob. Throw my backpack in, close the trunk, try to open the car door. That fob sensor is external to the car, not internal to the car.
Oh, no.
So there's nothing quite like enlisting the aid of your ex-wife at midnight to retrieve a key and bring it to you with your daughter in tow. It was terrible.
Wow.
So I ended up getting home a lot later than expected. It was a pretty jinxed journey, but all that said, still feeling pretty good.
Oh, wow. That's quite the little story there, Stu.
Yep.
Can I get the real details now? Or does that happen after the podcast?
That
Fortress
depends.
of Nerditude after hours.
Yeah, kind of. I was exhausted, though. I mean, like... Oh, and another element of this, I kind of forgot about this. So I was actually planning on, I had taken one sleep aid pill, like you're supposed to take two. I took one.
Sure.
I had a drink before I got on the flight, or before I got on the plane that was not the flight. So I was planning on being able to sleep overnight on that flight on the way to North Carolina. As about half an hour after the flight starts, all the lights come on in the plane. And they ask if there's anyone with medical experience that can assist.
What?
So there was this lady in the back of the plane. I don't know what happened, but I saw her later, and she was like shaking and covered in blankets and stuff, talking to medical personnel, but she was smiling and whatnot. But apparently something had happened, and they were in the back of the plane, and the flight attendant and whoever it was that answered the call for medical personnel sat with her the whole way. We were warned that we may have to medically divert. Fortunately, that didn't happen. But yeah, so the lights were on inside the cabin, bright the whole flight, and there was no sleep to be had.
Yeah.
So I was a little tired the next day, and
this sounds like my Nashville trip back from June, where it was like it took us like 12 hours to get there.
Yeah, not a pleasant experience for the flight itself at all. But anyway, with that, Morgana had a Halloween party at a Girl Scouts thing, and definitely got way too hopped up on sugar that night.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, pretty tame stuff. Otherwise, no big deal.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Nice. Would you like me to talk about my week now,
Yes,
so you
please.
can take a breathe?
I'm really interested to hear what happened with you this week. Any adventures with the Potbelly Cooker? How's Brita doing? How are the kids?
So this hour and a half drive that she lives away from the airport. No, I'm just teasing you. So my week. So you left and went on your whirlwind adventure. I was here having my own little mini adventures, as I always do. We had a full weekend. So we took the boys to a trunk or treat over at the Young Chevrolet here in Layton. And it was interesting because like you stand in line and it's like, oh, there's gonna be, we're not gonna get a lot because they went to a trunk or treat the previous week and came away with like 10 pieces of candy. This one actually was like pretty decent, and they got to meet some firefighters and a bunch of like local businesses, and like the school board was putting it on, and so they got a bunch of candy and they got to go in and color some pictures to enter into a contest to win like an iPad mini, which Charlie ain't gonna win nothing there. I mean, I love the kid, but he's 5, he can't color inside the lines. They're not gonna pick someone who's just colored the whole thing red and green and blue or whatever. But he did that and he had fun, and that's all that it really mattered. Like, he was having a good time. But then they also took a picture so we could enter into like the costume contest on social media. Yeah, he was a cute little Han Solo, and Jackson was a cute little stormtrooper, First Order stormtrooper. Right. So that happened, and we did that, and then we had to go up to my office to pick up something. And when we got up there, kids were still in their costumes, and I was like, "Hey, come on in." And I said, "Hey, go get your candy bags because we have candy in our office, and it's just, like used by, the employees and whatnot." And so I said, "Hey, say trick or treat." They said trick or treat. And then I stuck my hand into the candy bag and dumped a bunch of candy into their things and, gave them a handful extra to supplement. Probably not a great idea because, they probably ate half of that, but
right.
Did the Costco, did the traveling around, went to Target, did a few things. And then, on Sunday, we had a really busy day. I finished up my belt for my Jedi costume that I've been working with leather. I took on this ambitious project, as you and I have kind of talked, and it's now done. It's complete. It looks pretty decent, I gotta say. Like, I was surprised on how well it turned out. And then I had a fitting for my Jedi costume. I'll actually get to pick it up tomorrow, so I can actually wear it on Halloween when this episode is live. So my boys are excited. We're doing that thing. Sunday night, I went over to my mom's house, and she'd been craving fajitas for a couple of weeks, and she had her knee operated on, so she's still not getting around very well. So we brought over stuff, and I made them fajitas, chicken and steak fajitas, and fed them Sunday night. We had the whole family over, and we had a late night Sunday night. Saturday night, we went out with some friends in our neighborhood, and our kids ended up staying up till like almost 11 o'clock at night, which is like 3 hours past their bedtime. But
or as I call it, keeping your kids up so that you can retrieve keys to your car.
Right, exactly. Yeah, of course. You will help me jimmy rig this thing open. But it was a lot of fun, and the cool thing is that the guy we were there, like the married couple, he's really into like collecting toys and like vintage toys, and so he was showing me his huge Star Wars collection and like He-Man and Transformers, and he's got Voltron. He's picked up this Voltron, like remember the old Voltron toy you could actually put together to make the big thing?
Oh, I remember.
He's got that.
Nice.
The sad thing is that I loved it so much. I'm probably gonna like start going with him next spring when he goes on some of these scavenger hunts to find some of this stuff. Because I saw there was a part of me, Stu, that when I saw the Darth Vader carrying case for the original Star Wars figures, like mentally, like it just took me back to when I was like 6 years old and I had that thing.
Yeah, I had the Millennium Falcon carrying case.
I still have a Millennium Falcon down in the basement, and the batteries still will like operate the little laser sounds. But I saw that carrying case though, Stu, and I just went, I don't know why, but I have this insane desire that I have to reclaim that piece of my childhood. So starting probably this spring, I'm going to be on the prowl looking for deals, and probably getting into another hobby that I have no business belonging in, and spending money that I have no business spending, in the hopes of starting a collection and then maybe buying some other things that I can flip.
Yeah. There's something that you mentioned in there that's, unfortunately, I wish this was like a bigger reveal, because by the time it's revealed, it will have already occurred. But you said on Halloween when the show is actually aired.
Yeah.
Halloween's Wednesday night, Spencer.
We'll see if I can make some magic happen. No promises, but we'll see if I can make some magic happen.
We'll talk to the Pumpkin King.
Yes. We will pray to the great pumpkin and see if it will arise a night early for us.
I'll just get my bro Charlie Brown on the phone.
Right. So anyway, man, crazy week. Obviously for me, a lot went on, but the big takeaway was seriously the outpouring of love from so many of the super friends, and it really meant a lot. Like there were some people that really sent some very, very touching, sweet messages that I'm just going to keep kind of personal, but they were very, very nice. And I just felt an outpouring of gratitude and love, which is nice. I mean, it's nice when you can have those kind of like quiet moments when something like that happens. So, but now it's episode 101. We've past the century threshold.
Or as we're going to call it with the new naming convention, Ellie survived week number 2.
Right. That's maybe a little long for the title of the podcast, but...
Doesn't matter.
Ooh, episode 101, Ellie lives. Boom. Boom, right there.
Return of the Ellie.
The last of Ellie?
No. Oh.
I don't mean it in that way. I meant like in The Last of Us. Joel, Ellie.
No. Oh, no.
Sorry. Let's flip that. Rewind it. Let's move it back.
Nope, not editing. You're in big trouble, mister.
You know I have the power to edit that, right?
Oh, I do, but for all the crap I get, for you to edit that out, ooh.
Yeah. I meant The Last of Us, like Joel and Ellie. Yeah, that didn't come out right.
You're at the fire now.
I'm sure I'll hear from her, and
we'll hear about it next week.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, by the way, she's very lovely to talk to, very nice, texted back and forth, and like I told you, yeah, very, very, very nice. Mm-hmm. I'm glad Ellie and I are starting a little friendship where we're going to be able to talk about you on the side.
That never backfires.
I'm sure you love this idea.
Oh, no, I really, really don't, and I've told her as much.
And I love the fact that I'm cackling about this, and I bet you she's going to do the exact same thing.
Yep. Y'all suck.
Stu, hey, I've told you that for a long time. I make no bones about it. Well, let's do that thing we like to do every week.
Oh, with impunity, murder them Bothans.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Stu, we have murdered many Bothans, and it's now time for Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
Well, so I kind of got caught off guard, honestly, and I totally did not really go over the show notes ahead of time. So that's going to be interesting. But
fair enough. But there's spooky show notes, Stu. Remember that. Spooky show notes.
Spooky show notes. Ooh, because we're talking Halloween here. So the first thing to talk about then in that case is the headless Boba Fett.
Bum, bum, bum.
Ooh, scary. Yeah, so this is something I actually saw even without needing to kind of dive into it, and we knew after Solo there was some fallout at the studio. There was definitely some conjecture that, maybe they'd moved too fast on some things. They were definitely going to be delaying some stuff. There was speculation about what that actually might mean for a couple of different movies. We knew that there was going to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. We were looking at the Boba Fett movie. We know there's 2 other trilogies that were supposed to be coming down. I think this is probably the first official axe to anything. But the Boba Fett movie focusing on the Mandalorian is dead. Yeah. So now this was the show, right? So the Star Wars series for Disney's streaming service. Well, that's still a go, but then the spinoff for Boba Fett is completely gone. So there was going to be a tie-in apparently, though. So that's no more as well.
Can I just say that as a huge Star Wars fan, I'm actually okay with this idea.
I am too.
Because, I like the idea that Boba Fett was this kind of cult classic kind of icon based on Empire and Return of the Jedi alone, and that he really dies off at the end of Return of the Jedi. At least on the film, what we see, we make the assumption he's dead when he goes into the Sarlacc pit. I always just felt like if you brought him back, if he escapes the Sarlacc pit, doesn't die, blah, 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 then that feels like a cash grab, like hey, let's cash in on the nostalgia, the cool factor of the character.
Right. Well, I mean, it could have been, I don't know. Well, I mean, knowing that it's going to tie into the show, yeah. I'm just okay with it because I'm feeling a bit, there's that word, fatigued
yes.
by Star Wars stuff. And it's not necessarily, I would love to go see the movie, don't get me wrong. Any Star Wars movie that comes out, I'm going to be right there, but I don't like feeling the pressure of every movie every year there's going to be a Star Wars movie. It's going to be a crapshoot on quality because they're pushing for time, they're pushing for, deadlines. We may not get the actors we want. We may not get the stories we want. I would like it to go back to being that event that we talked about a couple episodes ago.
Yep.
And it's definitely losing that appeal. So if they can get back to that and make it stand out and pop out every time there's something Star Wars that comes out, I would be super happy with that.
Plus, here's the thing, too, is that we need Star Wars stuff that is new, unique, and that stands on its own.
Yes.
I'm rewatching Star Wars Rebels, the second season right now. I'm watching with the boys, and it's their first time watching Star Wars Rebels. Mm-hmm. And I like that even though there's some tie-ins to other characters, the main characters in that show stand on its own. It is unique. It is different, kind of how Clone Wars, had some characters that were established, but we got new characters. We need to have going forward, like this Mandalorian show, we need to have things that stand on its own so we can flesh out the world. Because otherwise, after episode 9, if everything's focused on tying back to existing characters we know, tying back to existing storylines, you eventually kind of close off the possibility for new. And you just have to have everything couched in old and familiar, comfortable. Yep. So I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I am too. It's a little bit sad though to see something a bit ambitious and something of the Star Wars universe that was that would be big and become canon, just kind of done.
True,
but it makes a lot of sense, and I think that sacrificing that for the greater good of Star Wars and the future of the franchise is definitely the right move to make.
For the greater good. Yeah. So another Disney property. And this is interesting. I saw this last couple days. So Disney is exploring how to reboot the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Now, they've apparently got a writing team, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. They're the writers behind the first 2 Deadpool movies. It's the Pirates of the Caribbean are the Jeremy Bruckheimer, films that, star Johnny Depp. They're, heavy on the action, heavy on the CGI. I remember seeing the first movie and I kind of thought, this is kind of cool, but it felt a little long for me at 2.5 hours. But, it was fine. But then it's gone on to spin off, 5? Well, they got 5 of these movies. But here's the thing. This franchise made $4.5 billion in 14 years. $1 billion. And so now they're obviously saying, okay, how can we continue this cash cow, right? But there's no indication whether or not they're going to be bringing back Johnny Depp or if they're going to be bringing back anyone. It could be a complete reboot. And so then the issue is, was this popular because of the big actors that were in it and it hit at the right time and that was it? Or is this people are really interested in pirates and kind of that setting, and is that something that they can reproduce and replicate?
Well, it's the combination of the two. I mean, the pirate adventure is definitely a classic.
Sure.
There have been pirate books and movies forever. We definitely love some spin-off, Peter Pan, for example.
Yeah.
You throw pirates into a
Goonies.
good adventure, Goonies.
Yep.
You throw pirates into that, and it becomes something of its own, mystique and legend. And so that by itself lends credence to this. But then you end up with some big name actors, and you've got Orlando Bloom and Johnny Depp.
Keira Knightley,
right? Thank you. And it definitely adds some oomph to it, especially, Captain Jack Sparrow for the first few of them. Now, the problem with the series for me is that those jokes became overdone and recycled.
Yeah,
there really wasn't anything new to it. The new plots really didn't even seem to matter. And yeah, we're seeing the same things over and over again. So the problem with a reboot for me is that we're really just going to see the same thing over and over again, except even I would believe with less oomph. If they're going to reboot it, I can't imagine that they're going to keep the same actors along, especially, Johnny Depp's price tag just keeps going up and up, and he keeps becoming more of a gamble.
Right.
I don't know that it would make sense to even include Johnny Depp in that, even if they had the option to do so. As much as I love his acting, he's definitely... I'll stick with older version of Johnny Depp. His newer work's not so impressive. I don't know. I think it would do well enough. I don't think it would even contain half of the majesty of the original Pirates of the Caribbean movie, maybe the first sequel. The first three of them definitely probably carried it. 3 was where it started to get long for me.
Yeah, that's where I fell off, was after the 3rd. I didn't watch the 4th and 5th.
I haven't seen the 5th. I did watch the 4th. I begrudgingly, and the 5th one I just really don't care to even try. I know they're never going to let that die. It's Disney. It's definitely, a cornerstone franchise for them. I'm not very optimistic for that formula ever taking hold again.
Something that maybe I could see work is like when they do their streaming service, maybe make it into like a serialized show, because then you could reboot it and tell like a progressive serialized story that could maybe like engross people in it. But I mean, it's not going to pull in $14.5 billion over 14 years or whatever it was.
I would be much more interested in the cartoon.
Interesting.
I'm not really a cartoon guy for that kind of stuff. The exception being Star Wars. I think some of the Star Wars animated stuff has been phenomenal. And I think in that medium, in this case, Pirates would definitely make more sense. And you could have like, seasonal story arcs, and it could work out really well.
Well, I guess we'll just have to figure out what Disney's going to do going forward, but it looks like they're talking about rebooting it, and I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence, but we'll see what they do. Yeah.
Well, there's another animated series, speaking of, that just kind of came around, Disenchantment. Matt Groening's new whatever the heck you want to call it, his vehicle for the same humor that I think I've seen in most of his other stuff. The first, there's a weird release model in that there's basically, the first season is really 2 seasons. I don't know why they want to call it 1 season. I guess it was all filmed together or whatever. But, so the first season was this year and next year. 2019 is going to be the second half of season 1. I really did not buy into it. I tried watching a couple episodes. I was kind of more of the same jokes, not really enough new to really grab my attention. However, apparently there was a cliffhanger at the end of the first half of the season that really got a lot of people's attention and excited to see more of it. So we are definitely getting that second half of the first season coming next year. But it was also renewed for another 20 episode season for 2020 and 2021.
Wow.
So there'll be a new 2-year season for Disenchantment on Netflix. Curious to see where it goes. I mean, if it gets better and the writing gets funnier, I guess, and it becomes something that stands more on its own, I would be interested to see it. But right now, I'm just kind of meh on it all. But it's popular enough to get some demand. So,
well, and sometimes, like any good show, sometimes it takes a little while to really get going. So if you got to think that what they've only released is like technically like the first half of a season. I've watched shows that I thought have been just kind of like, okay, for a first half of a season, and then they really start picking it up in the second half. And most recently, I'm thinking of Star Trek Discovery. Like the beginning of Star Trek Discovery was just kind of okay. It just kind of felt like we were having some of the classic Trek tropes and things established, some characters. But then that second half just was off the rails, bonkers, deliciously amazing.
Wow!
And I can't wait.
Now you're making me want to see it again.
I'm telling you.
Have you seen any of the short treks yet?
No, I am actually waiting to watch them when I can watch them all right before I watch the second series.
Same here. Yeah, I don't know, but the one complaint I have about that is that this isn't really just a new show that's finding its legs. This is really a legacy of The Simpsons and his other work. So a lot of the same familiar situations, a lot of the same styles of jokes, a lot of the same, animation style is really kind of still living on from other stuff. And it's not brand new trying to get its wings going. That's where I think I have the biggest issue with this is it one of my faults is simply that this does not stand out enough on its own to get my interest.
It's something I've got on my list of things I want to watch, but it's not at the top of my list. And it's probably going to take me a little while to get around to it, but I would like to check it out.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Okay, so here is some happy Halloween-ish, horror-ish news. I don't know.
Oh, I'm scared.
Yeah, you should be scared. Sony released the list of the PlayStation games that's being put on the Classic. The PlayStation Classic. Remember, This is the miniaturized version of the PS1. They're selling for $100. That releases on the 3rd of December of this year, and they've listed 20 games. And I'll read the games off to you, and then I'm going to tell you a couple of games that aren't on this that I think are mistakes. So they're adding Battle Arena Toshinden, Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Revelations Persona, Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Siphon Filter, Tekken 3, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Twisted Metal, and Wild Arms. Those are the 20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Games that I actually played or heard of or remember hearing of now, because we're talking this is, a while back, is obviously, Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto, Metal Gear Solid, Oddworld, Rayman, Resident Evil, Ridge Racer, Siphon Filter, Rainbow Six, Tekken, Twisted Metal. I don't remember any of the others at all.
Yeah.
There's one big name, though. One ginormous name that is left off of this. Tomb Raider. You're not going to put the original Tomb Raider on here?
Well,
that game sold the frickin' console.
Well, the problem is that Tomb Raider was not an exclusive either. And I guess maybe there are a couple others that are not exclusives, but I mean, Tomb Raider also found a lot of life on PC as well.
Yeah, but you got to look, though, at the console wars, right? Because there's been a lot of games that were exclusive to PlayStation, but they also were on console. Or, Xbox later, they were on console. Or Nintendo, but they were also on console. But Tomb Raider, though, was like the game on PlayStation back in the day for a long time. And so I think the inclusion of not having that, obviously, like the Crash games, the Crash Bandicoot games, I mean, yeah. Crash Bandicoot was Sony exclusive. Nothing there.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I don't think I'd buy a PlayStation Classic just to get a Crash Bandicoot game.
Well, so another thing about Tomb Raider, though, is it was also on the Sega Saturn, which...
Oh.
I don't know that would pull enough. Because, I mean, I was a Sega junkie. I did not... I was leaning towards Sega in that initial wave of console wars. I loved Sega System, and I remembered playing it on console. And I'm like thinking, God, I know I did not play that on PlayStation, but yeah, Sega Saturn as well. But I mean, be that as it may, I would say in a generalized way, this is definitely a lot of miss.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you hunted around for it and you found some good yard sales and everything else, I see this as being able to build your own original PlayStation, even maybe
cheaper.
refurbish it, and get every single one of these games for cheaper than $100.
Yeah. Now you're not going to get it with HDMI connection, and
yeah.
there's that. I get that, but I don't think you're wrong, Stu. I mean,
there's no Super Nintendo level draw of the reboot or of a new consolidated system.
So that's my thing, right? Like the Nintendo was a massive console, had tons of titles, and so when the NES Classic came out, there was a lot of games. It was like 30 games. It was $60, and almost everything they put on there was a big nostalgic hit. And I think it sold crazy. And then, of course, the Super Nintendo one just made a lot of sense. And the Super Nintendo was big and had big heavy hitters.
Yep.
But the PlayStation one, like I feel like there's some games here, but man, I've got Final Fantasy VII in like 7 different places already.
These seem to be a lot of niche games that like maybe 2 or 3 would jump out to any flavor of gamer, but there's nothing that's kind of universally drawing like the NES Classic was.
No, there's no Tony Hawk game on here.
Oh, that's a miss. The things I like on here real quick. Final Fantasy VII, that's a given. I honestly wish they would have put like 8 or 9 because 7's getting the reboot anyway, but it makes a lot of sense. The original Grand Theft Auto, to be honest, I am actually really glad they have this on here, and if there was any game on here that might draw me into buying it, it would be that. I loved the original Grand Theft Auto, and it is absolutely nothing like the version of the game that you see today.
It was top down. You just hopped out.
Top down as a little racing game.
Yeah,
it was good. Why the heck is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo even on here?
Yeah,
that's
I had no clue.
Ridiculous. Maybe Twisted Metal. Tekken 3 I liked, but yeah, this is not any draw for me to get a whole bunch of games I love. It's to get maybe a couple because I'm not going to get them anywhere else unless I do go down and hunt it. I would personally rather go buy a NES Classic. Yeah,
I'm passing on this. I'm not asking for it for Christmas. I'm not spending my money on it.
Yep.
There's just not enough here to draw me in. I think if it had a few other games, I think you're right. Like if it had Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, Tomb Raider on here, stuff like that.
Or what was that? Ace Combat?
Yeah.
Like that was huge. That was like big in the arcades. That was big on PlayStation. It was like the first real 32-bit style fighter, plane fighter game.
Wasn't there also like Star Wars Dark Forces that was on the PlayStation? Or maybe that's N64 I'm thinking.
I don't know. They had one of them there.
I know
I did play one of them on PlayStation. I don't remember which, but it would be great if a system like this reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Now I fully believe that there will be a Nintendo 64 classic that will come out.
I will be all over that.
As long as they don't use that crappy controller design. Ugh.
I didn't mind it so much.
The 3-pronged trident, but I mean seriously, GoldenEye, to be able to replay that again.
Oh, for me, it would be Ultimate Killer Instinct.
Yes.
Or what was it? Was Rogue Squadron on the 64?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. I'd be all over that.
Dark Forces was on that. I remember that too. Yeah. There's a lot of Nintendo 60. Even as much like
Paper Mario.
Yep. No, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. That was GameCube. But I think
one of them was on 64.
Yeah, I think the first one was there. But there's a lot of N64 games that I would be into. But we'll have to see. I'm sure it's going to happen. I would actually be more excited for Sony to release a PlayStation 2 classic. Because there's a lot. I mean, that generation, the PlayStation 2 generation, was huge. It was like 7-8 years, and there was tons of games there. So I'd like to see that.
I could do PlayStation 3 as well.
But anyway.
First one is definitely a miss, though.
Yeah, I'm a pass on this, a hard pass.
Well, one thing that I know you're not going to pass on is Avengers 4.
No, never.
I mean, I think biggest cliffhanger ever in cinema history, as far as I'm concerned. Just saying.
I'm saying Darth Vader, I'm your father.
Oh, even as a no. I wasn't that intrigued to see what was going to happen next. I mean, we knew we were going to see it, and we all kind of somewhat knew the story by that point, and I don't know. But either way, the one thing that we don't know anything about so far, supposedly, is the title of Avengers 4. Or do we? Dun dun dun. Are you scared?
I'm scared that I've missed it, Stu.
It's all Halloween-y like that. It's people in masks kind of handing out different titles. There was some speculation that Avengers Endgame was going to be the title, but the Russo brothers said that the title is not used in Infinity War dialogue, which rules out Endgame somehow. I don't know how that is, but that's what the explanation is. A few weeks ago, they sent out a picture with a caption, "Look hard," in which case everyone started going completely crazy and ape crap over trying to analyze it for clues. About the only thing that kind of came out about that was that there was a big A beside the Avengers. So, but some sources who are supposedly reliable, though we're not seeing any names, are Avengers Annihilation. Apparently, it doesn't necessarily make sense because it's a different Marvel story, according to some people. However, we know that they kind of grab the stories out of the comics and use them in their own ways. So that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that if it did kind of tie in some way, that they're going to find a way to do that. But looks like there's, a couple other sources that are kind of somewhat half confirming the Annihilation title. So to me, though, Annihilation doesn't really grab my attention. Yeah. Doesn't really seem to fit. Infinity Wars, we knew all the stones were coming into place. We were getting hints left and right. There was no secret about that. So Infinity War, absolutely. We know that's coming down. Annihilation, I'm not seeing a lead into that, especially given that, we already have the events at the end of Infinity War. What's Annihilation going to be about?
Yeah. Well, I wonder if it's just all a big ruse and then they're going to call it Infinity Gauntlet, which was the title of the comic series, because then that would tie with Infinity War and kind of make them feel like this was a two-parter. That's my guess, is it has something more along those lines.
I kind of wish they had actually just kept it how they originally planned to do it with Infinity War Parts 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah,
that would have made a lot more sense to me. So,
but the Russo brothers know what they're doing, and they're probably just screwing with us like they did with the old Thor trailer and how Thor looked and whatnot. I mean,
I don't need deception. Misleading is one thing. Deception, outright deception. No more. No more, Russo brothers.
Yeah.
I will find you.
And I will tell you how much I loved your movies. I mean, what are you going to say there?
I'm so mad. Oh my God, that was the best thing ever. Thank you so much.
But take all my money.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got one more thing here in
our
scary? Haunted Rebel Intelligence.
Okay.
The spooky McRib is back.
So if you knew what was in those, you would be scared.
If you remember, the McRib came out in 1981 originally. It was released as a limited menu item. It is basically a barbecue sauce-drenched, rib-shaped, ribless pork patty that's served with some slivered onions and tart pickles on a hoagie-style bun. That's the McRib, right?
Yep.
I think if you were in anywhere alive since 1981 till now, you've probably seen the McRib, because it's always one of those, it's been gone, but it's back now for a limited time only.
Yeah.
But it seems like in recent years, it comes back almost every year. It's skipped a few years at times. But the McRib got a real big push with the Flintstones movie in 1994. That classic, starring John Goodman. And then it disappeared.
And Rick Moranis.
Yes, and Rick Moranis, yes. But then it basically, it disappeared until like 2010. Like it was gone for a long, long time. But since
it
then,
did leave a void in my life.
Yeah. You're probably better off. Just saying. But the McRib is coming back again, but it's not coming to all McDonald's stores. Apparently, it's only coming to 9,000 of the nearly 14,000 U.S. locations.
I think they did that last time as well.
Yeah, they did.
Because I remember some friends hunting down, like, was their McDonald's going to have the McRib? And it was a big Facebook thing for a bit.
There's even like a McRib locator that you can use to help find, as they say, quote unquote, McRib sightings.
Ooh, spooky.
Spooky indeed. So,
ooh, that's what I'll do is I'll leave a McRib just on my front porch. That'll scare the crap out of the neighborhood kids.
I mean, they're not going to know what it is. It's going to smell like hot garbage after a day or two. So, Super Friends, if you are one of those, people that just craves Jolt Cola and 3D Doritos and McRibs, you have a chance to gain back part of your childhood.
I love all of those things.
I know you do, Stu.
3D Doritos are awesome. And Jolt Cola, that'll get you going. That's what I need before the show, Ellie. Is Jolt Cola.
Little Jolt Cola.
So I am curious. Have you looked at the locator to see if we're getting any McRibs?
No, and the reason being is that I really am not eating fast food this year. So that's kind of I've barely had any at all.
I guess donuts don't count as fast food.
No, they don't. Thank you for reminding me of my moment of weakness.
Moments.
So let's talk about Ellie some more, shall we?
Let's do it. Bring it on. Bone saw's ready.
So I'm looking at this picture of this McRib here, and I'm like, I'm a little hungry right now, so it looks kind of tasty. And then I just sit here and I look at it for a minute or two longer, and I think, no, I'm not that hungry. I always remembered it being good when I was a kid, and then I got an adult and I was like, yeah, let's go grab it. It's big, it's hot, it's, the new, it's, new again, it's, kind of retro. And then I ate it and I was like, this doesn't taste that great.
I love it. I think the barbecue sauce that they use for it is fantastic. I think the bread choice for it is great. It is definitely a messy American burger kind of thing. I'm under no delusions that it's like, prime rib, grade A kind of rib meat that's going to be all succulent and everything else. It is what it is, but I love it. It tastes great. I think the pickles and the onions on there are done perfectly. I love the McRib, man.
Here's the thing, Stu. This just came to me. Why don't we make ribs in my Potbelly cooker and make our own McRib sandwich with real rib meat?
I'm down for that, but that doesn't mean I'm going to start hating the McRib.
I'm not saying you have to hate the McRib. Okay. I'm not saying I hate it either. I'm just saying it doesn't appeal to me like it used to. And I think we can make a much better souped up version of this with actually real rib meat, not, rib-shaped ribless pork patty.
It is the best ribless-shaped pork patty you'll ever find, sir.
Well, with that spooky McRib story, I am out for Rebel Intelligence. Do you have anything else for good old Rebel Intelligence?
I am just too scared to even continue.
We just scared the Rebel Intelligence right out of you.
Yep. Bothans are running terrified as well. I can live with that.
All right. So, Stu, not last week, but 2 weeks ago, we got to jump back, re-jog our memories a little bit.
That was before Ellie was on the show. Got it. The pre-Ellie era.
The pre-Ellie era. The first 100 episodes.
First 99 episodes.
Sure. The first 99 episodes and 6 days.
Okay, anyway.
I don't know. I'm like weirdly specific about this is exactly when she came on. Prior to episode 100, we talked about how Disney now is going to be owning Fox. Kevin Feige's talking about how he's considering bringing in the X-Men into the MCU. And we asked our Super Friends, how would you, the Super Friends, bring in the X-Men into the MCU? And we've got a couple answers, and some people have been sitting on some things they wanted to let us know, so we're going to get to that.
Okay.
Start over at email like we do. It says, Dear Nerds, your 100 Punchits were a perfect intro and celebration of the first 100 episodes of the Fortress of Nerditude.
Awesome!
It showed the consistency of the intro with some fun deviations and the variety of co-hosts, but mostly that Spencer has gotten way better at audio production. That's true.
Not untrue.
Regarding Marvel canceling Netflix shows, I would bet it's a mix of Netflix focusing on its own properties and Marvel/Disney consolidating its characters in advance of their announced streaming service. The Marvel Netflix shows date back to when Netflix was producing its own wildly popular prestige shows, but now their focus is on less expensive shows laser targeted to audiences they've identified based on user data. I'm definitely not going to finish watching the MCU prequels, although my wife and I did see Hulk in theaters on our honeymoon. Luckily, our marriage survived that rocky start. Sadly, the jam side hustle collapsed when I realized it was a ton of work for a teeny bit of money. Also, having gallons of jam around the house isn't great when you're trying to cut out sugar. I hear you there, Peter. He says, +1 for annual awards ceremony. Nice. So he does like that idea, too. I definitely think that's going to happen. He says,
oh, yeah, for sure. I've already been thinking about stuff to add to that.
I don't know, right? He says, my daughter Alicia also wants to be on the special kid episode. He says, thanks again for 100 episodes, many laughs, and some new super friends. Cheers, Peter Christensen.
Nice.
Yeah, really, really good stuff there. It's funny that he mentions the 100 Punch-It Chewies, because I did get a lot of messages about that, where people said like, oh, the first couple I kind of laughed, and then it kind of went on, and I was like, okay, I got to buckle up for the ride, and then eventually like it became funny again.
Yeah.
And I did kind of worry a little bit about that, because I was like, this is going to go on for a little while, and I actually, the day before we put it out, I checked back with you, said, are you sure that this isn't a bad idea? Like, I need a second opinion. Let's just make sure. And you said, no, go forward with it 100%.
Yep.
And I'm so glad we did. I'm so glad we stuck to it because I got a lot of positive response back.
I mean, it's not something we could ever get away with or even want to get away with on a regular basis.
No.
But the Punch-Its they're a story in and of themselves within, I mean, they've evolved. I've tried to definitely make the deviations more regular. That's kind of my opportunity to add some flair. Obviously there were some, Steve did a few, and then also the co-host element of that. You can see that in the middle of it. Yep. The audio quality evolution as well was highlighted in there, and it really fit, and I think it really needed to be there. I do get the drag on thing, and but I'm glad it definitely kind of came back around. And I agree that that's exactly what happened. But I love the Punch It Chewy. It definitely is my moment to in 1 second get psyched up for the show and kind of get that feeling in that I'm going to use for momentum throughout the next couple hours.
Yeah. There's been a few episodes way back when Steve and I forgot to do it, and we edited it in, put it back in post during editing, because the show isn't finished to me if that's not there. Like, that's a key component. So going over to Twitter, Sean Brett at Bacon Knight says, I would reboot X-Men and keep them in their own reality. They only cross over into the Avengers reality from time to time for big movies, like an Avengers versus X-Men movie.
I would kind of agree with that, honestly.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit, and the only thing is, like, if you're going to have an Avengers versus X-Men movie, you're going to have something that's going to cross over a little earlier in order to set that up. Otherwise, how do you pull them all together in one big movie without any lead up to it, right? I mean, look at the Infinity War. We've had Infinity Stones, laced throughout the MCU since basically Phase 1 to get all the way to the end of Phase 3 to do Infinity War. So you had to have something there, but
yeah. Slight digression. That was one thing I forgot. I actually I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp with Morgana last week.
Oh yeah, what did you think?
I thought it was pretty good. It's
a fun movie.
It's a fun movie. The ending of it, though, definitely just kind of kicked me in the gut with the tie-in. Oh,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like the Ant-Man movies. I think that
I do
it's
too.
I think that it's kind of refreshing that it's like we've talked about before. It's a fun movie. It's a little lighthearted. They seem to drop those movies after like a big kind of gut punchy, heavy movie.
Yeah, it's family friendly, lighthearted, lots of action, lots of funny jokes.
But still Marvel all the way through.
Yep, for sure. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm glad you saw it because I really loved that movie. It was a lot of fun. Facebook, Tom Quitno says, I would have Ant-Man go into the quantum realm and find a different dimension, Earth, and time, or stumble on them in the Kree/Skrull war. Didn't the Kree Stone and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. give them some powers?
Well, that's how we ended up with the Inhumans.
That's right. That's exactly right. And as I recall, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that Kree Stone is more for like time travel versus like dimensional travel. So
yeah, but I mean, potato tomato. There's definitely some tie-in between time and space. Manipulation of one thread of that leading to another. It's kind of a common sci-fi trope. That could work in that regard, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's my favorite idea, but
it's an idea.
It's an idea. I don't see them resolving this whole issue in anything that makes any kind of sense anyway, so why not?
Right. Okay, Ken Emery on Facebook says, in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we saw Stan Lee with the Watchers, implying that he's been watching two different universes. Suddenly, a new threat emerges, for example, Galactus, that might require, both universes to come together to fight it, basically. That is interesting with Stan Lee, because, right, Stan Lee's made appearances in all the movies, these cameos, and then Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they showed him hanging out with the Watchers, maybe implying he's a Watcher. And so maybe Stan Lee, is the tie that binds it all, which would be kind of an interesting idea.
Sure. Throw it all in the kettle right now. I'm good.
Right.
That's it. That is my new suggestion for how to bring the X-Men into the Avengers universe. The potbelly cooker.
Nice. We just dump it all in there and let the vortex of smoke melt that meat into juicy, juicy awesomeness.
Heck yeah.
We got a couple voicemails. Let's go over to Paul Calicote.
Of course.
Hey, gentlemen. Paul again. This is my, I have to tell you guys this before I lose this piece of paper. These are my ideas for bringing the X-Men into the MCU, or the Fantastic Four. Okay. So, Reed Richards finds out about this cosmic wave coming towards Earth, kind of bouncing off of your idea, y'all's idea. Well, the Avengers also have fancy equipment and know about this thing too. So, they enlist the help of Reed Richards and send him out into space, but he will only go with his friends, therefore creating the Fantastic Four. They will be unable to stop the cosmic wave, and it saturates Earth, giving people the mutation gene. Bouncing off of your idea. Or maybe not do teams and do like specific characters, like Wolverine. Maybe they could have Wolverine show up at Cap America's like 110th birthday party, and like maybe they talk about being in World War II together, because Wolverine was part of the Howling Commandos in some of the comic books. And I think that would be pretty sweet. I wish there was more Howling Commandos in the Captain America movies. Anyways, I had to get those out of my head before I lost this paper. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Elstein.
Okay, so Paul basically kind of has the similar idea we talked about, at least that I kind of talked about, right? The idea that something happens to kind of unleash the mutant gene. But what I do like about Paul's idea, though, is that he has Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four in space enlisted due to Reed Richards' scientific prowess to try to help them stop it. And that would, basically cause the creation of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, so there's two overlapping themes that I think really kind of decide how it could really be approached. The first is that, and I think this is really the only way that makes sense, is that this has to be created from a forward point. The mutations have to, there has to be a triggering event that causes these mutations. Otherwise, we're implying that mutants have been there all along, or we have to get crossover parallel universes, or, XYZ. That there has to be something that brings the mutants and, Fantastic Four in fresh. The problem with that then is that you do ignore other mutants that have been around forever.
Yeah, in history.
Yeah, like Wolverine is the best example of that. I mean, how do you explain where mutants that have been around for a really long time, you just ignore that they were there the whole time if you do that. So I don't know how to reconcile those two ideas. Maybe it's that the majority of mutants are created fresh, but there are exceptions that have just been really well hidden with people that do prefer to be isolated, such as Wolverine.
Well, and we already kind of had Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch that they couldn't call them mutants, but they call them enhanced.
Right.
So, I mean, there's that, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I agree exactly. I think the problem you've laid out is the problem that's going to have to be addressed. Okay, we have one other voicemail. Now, I need to preface this a little bit. Caleb Albers, good friend, super friend of the show, right? I was talking to him tonight. He says, I've been waiting forever for this. I can't wait for you to hear what I have to think about this. And then he sent me a audio clip. The audio clip is 11 minutes long. It's definitely too long to listen to. So I'm going to paraphrase and hit the highlights. I took some notes. I would definitely recommend, he has a podcast with a buddy of his. They talked about it. I think they have a whole episode where they kind of devoted to this. So probably a good idea to go over and listen to that. You can get the full details. But he says He's got two main methods. One, Tony Stark tries to control the Infinity Gauntlet after the events of Infinity War, but as we see at the end of Infinity War, the Infinity Gauntlet maybe isn't going to work quite right. In the process of trying to manage that, he tries to put everything back in place, but what he really does is he merges an instance of, let's say, Earth 1, which we have our Avengers and heroes on, that doesn't have mutants, with like an Earth 2, kind of the multiverse idea, with an Earth 2 that has mutants on it. And when he does that and he puts everything together to try to put everything back, he introduces and blends the two worlds together. And there probably could be some sort of shared history, because in one they've been around forever and this one they haven't. And so the two are going to have to try to find a way to reconcile with each other and what's going on. But that's one idea. He says it's not his best idea, but it is an idea in a way that they could do something in the Avengers 4, even without showing the mutants. They could lay the seeds for that in this next coming up big movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if we're looking at the over-the-top solutions to the situation, that's as good as any. I mean, it's really kind of giving the comic book treatment to the movies, which I think there should be some hesitation in doing that. There needs to be something that kind of makes sense to the average viewer of the movie. This could definitely kind of propel things into something that makes it a bit more hokey than I think they ever wanted to try to do with the movies. That being said, if they're going to go with an over-the-top scenario, why not?
Yeah.
If they're just going to just take the problem head on and just say, you know what, we have no better ideas here, let's just slosh it all together, that's a good way to do that.
All right, he said his second idea is that the X-Men have been here all along, but the main ones, like, the ones we're familiar with, Beast, Wolverine, Psylocke, Jean Grey, all those, the ones that fight, are basically on a mission in space, maybe having something to do with the Fantastic Four, but they're basically off-world, and so Professor Xavier isn't going to send in untrained students to help out during the events of, Infinity War or the Avengers movies. And that basically also that a lot of the information about the Infinity Stones and information about a lot of the things going on were contained within Hydra or the Shield, depending on where this falls, or within certain branches of the government. And so maybe Xavier wasn't privileged to it, or at least the kids weren't privileged to it. And so he was keeping things back because he's not going to put the kids at risk. But now we could have, coming back from this mission in space, we could have, the main ones that are going to get involved show up. So that's an idea. But once again, it's kind of that over-the-top idea that, hey, we've been here all along, but you just haven't seen us for our various reasons, and we've been in hiding for our various mutant reasons.
I totally not to... And I mean, again, that kind of works, and actually that does lend some suspicion of disbelief, and I think it kind of allows an opportunity to tie into other things, but actually that just kind of inspired an idea for me. So thank you, Caleb. I'm not necessarily going off of what you said, but that kind of triggered an idea, maybe a modification of format here. What if they took the existing X-Men franchises that's going, we see, Phoenix, the new Phoenix movie, right?
Yeah, the Dark Phoenix, yeah.
Dark Phoenix. Maybe using that as a launch point into another movie that allows them to kind of bridge this. What if there's an event? What if there's an event with a new prequel X-Men movie? Prequel to Avengers, rather.
Right.
After current Dark Phoenix stuff, before Avengers, before Iron Man. What if there is some time travel stuff? Because we have seen that as an element in the existing X-Men movies. Yeah. That is like a major event, a major catastrophe that basically kind of wipes out a lot of the ancillary X-Men and causes them to go like deep, deep underground or deep into space or something to get away from Earth. And this is their opportunity to reemerge.
Yeah, that could work.
I mean,
it's all good ideas. He did have one last little kind of idea about the Fantastic Four because he loves Fantastic Four, and he said, if Reed Richards was really kind of responsible for helping develop and build the Negative Zone, which is a prison basically for the bad guys that they can't keep on Earth. He said, what if the Fantastic Four somehow got imprisoned in the Negative Zone, and they had their powers, but they had to basically learn how to master them and join together in order to escape the Negative Zone. And they've basically just been in the Negative Zone for quite a long time while all the events of Earth have happened, and then they are able to find their way back. That could explain their absence.
I don't remember the character's name. The main military guy that was against the X-Men that had his son that was...
Stryker.
What if Stryker somehow manages through outside intervention, time travel kind of thing, to win? What if he wins and captures both the Fantastic Four and the X-Men in the Negative Zone? And then Tony Stark, because of course it's going to be Tony Stark with the help of the Hulk, and they find this Negative Zone somehow, or locate it, something's giving off a signal, something causes them to investigate it, and
I know where you're going.
They kind of bust them out of there.
Could be.
Could
be.
Who knows? We'll see.
For some reason, I hear Negative Zone, and I always think of the Phantom Zone.
Yeah,
and so it's like, eventually something's going to happen, and a nuke's going to go off, and it's going to blow something up, and then, that's how they're going to escape, and then they get to come back to Earth, and I don't know.
Sure.
A lot of good ideas, though. Here's the thing, I take away, I had a few ideas, you had a few ideas, and then we heard a number of good ideas that, could be played out. Will Kevin Feige use any of these ideas? I don't know. Time will tell, but I like the fact that We got some interesting theories, things that I'm going to be thinking about for a little while now.
And of course, if any of the ideas happen to coincide with his thought process and they actually come to play, it was because he heard the podcast.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we're definitely going to take credit for that.
And who knows, maybe Caleb gets all the credit.
Well, Super Friends, thank you so much again this week for coming in and answering our question of the week. Every week you can do that. We will always put the question out. You can answer us on our Gmail, which is forwardofnerd@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, which is facebook.com/forwardofnerd. We're on Twitter @forwardofnerd. And you can reach us by phone on our voicemail, which Ellie did this week and Paul Calicote and Caleb Albers did. And that's 801-477-7687. Stu, this week, after 100 episodes, how can our Super Friends help us out?
Well, the only way to be sure that we make it another 100 episodes is by feeding us lots of healthy stuff so that we don't have to survive on McRibs and donuts. And then, with that, to carry us forward, they can leave 5-star reviews on the App Exchange. That's just the best way to get the name out,
On the App Exchange?
On the App Exchange. Wow, I did that again. On iTunes. You can leave a 5-star review for us on the Salesforce App Exchange as well. I'll have to develop an app just to be able to do that, but
nice.
Man, I will live and breathe that every day. I was actually in the App Exchange today, so of course that's going to be on my mind. But they can leave a 5-star review on iTunes as well. Say some nice things if you like. The 5 stars, though, are going to be what's picked up by the algorithms at the mighty Apple. Get us on some lists, get us heard, kind of spread the word that way. And again, this is definitely as permanent as anything else. Tell your friends, talk about some of the stuff that you like on the show. I know we've actually got a couple new listeners that I'm aware of, a couple new super friends. I love, the word just kind of gets spread out no matter what it's about. In this case, my lovely love life that's somehow become so interesting has gotten a few new listeners, so that's great. But hey, talk about the show, whatever you like about it. Give us feedback, let us know what you like, and the super friends that we have on Twitter that keep putting us up on the list every week, fantastic. I love that we're brought up anytime I see somebody ask what podcast to listen to. So thank you guys for all of that, super friends. You're miraculous. Keep spreading the word and giving us the 5 stars.
So say we all.
So say we all.
Stu, last week,
Spencer,
this is funny because this kind of was a perfect lead in. We were joking about last week about how hey, sometimes at the last minute we have to figure out what we're going to talk about, and then we said, hey, by the way, next week is Halloween. Hey, we're going to talk about Halloween.
Hey, you know what? If that's how we come up with episode ideas, I'm happy for it.
Right. Which is funny to me because we do this and we're creating content, something for people to listen to. And so I was thinking, we see this a lot where we'll see TV shows that'll have a holiday themed show. Halloween, you see a lot. Christmas, you see, sometimes Thanksgiving. And I always kind of felt growing up and for years that those ones always seemed like, hey, we kind of have an idea that we can kind of, stick a little bit of a story into, but then we can kind of hit some of the typical tropes and whatnot. And it kind of helps.
Why not do a podcast like that?
Right. But it's it's almost pre-generated content, right? But then we've seen it in recent years with video games that do kind of these, themed events that happen around holidays. And so I thought maybe we should talk about some of our favorite TV shows or video games that have holiday themed and specifically Halloween themed events.
Sure, I'm down. It's funny you bring this up because as I talked about before, I've started watching Community.
Yes,
and that's kind of been something that kind of just came up. The season one of Community had a holiday special with the zombie dance. I was really disappointed that we didn't get to hear Thriller in that somewhere, though.
I know that's gotta be the licensing issues. But I must say the ABBA playlist, from Dean Pelton, along with his grocery list, is so freaking hysterical because you're listening to Dancing Queen while there's a zombie outbreak going on.
Right,
Love it.
No, and they also kind of explore some relationships between the characters with basically providing the mind wipe after to kind of give them a pass at all the nefarious deeds that occur throughout, including some unlikely pairings.
Yes, some very unlikely pairings in that show. So it's funny that you started watching Community, because this weekend, as I was working on my Jedi belt, I needed something to kind of watch and listen to while I was working, but I didn't want it to be a new show that I'm really trying to pay attention. So I started watching Community. I'm like probably 6-7 episodes into the first season again already, for like the 1,000th time. I love that show.
Yeah, so rewatch potential is high.
Rewatch potential is high because there's lots of little things to pick up later. But that Halloween episode is probably one of my favorite for a few reasons. It's the absolute goofy nature of the show and the comedy mixed with the kind of horror Halloween, like, hey, we're having a Halloween party that goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Mm-hmm. That requires military intervention.
Yes, military grade intervention. But what I really love though is that like you get the interactions with like all the goofiness of the costumes, right? You know, what people dress up as. You know, everyone kind of really works at it really, really hard, except for Jeff Winger, who basically just wears a suit and carries a soccer ball and says he's David Beckham. But I love that. I love that episode. It's probably one of my favorite Halloween themed episodes on any television show.
No, it was pretty fantastic, and it was all the characters at their best. I will say, just to derail a tiny bit, I did see the D&D episode.
Ooh, yes,
that was amazing.
Yeah, but let's talk about that later, just off the podcast, because that is one of my favorites.
The funny thing about Community, though, is that I had never watched Community. Ellie and I, we like watching shows together remotely, and it's just kind of fun space to share as we do that. Kind of going through a couple things. It's been fun. It's been funny. We've seen some YouTube stuff. We tried to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine as my idea. Neither one of us really got into that. And then I knew that she had already watched Community. I was trying to find something neither one of us had watched that we could enjoy together. But she's like, I've actually watched it. But it's funny enough. I'd watch it with you, and kind of like she'll play a long thing and she'll enjoy herself and no big deal. And so we're starting to watch it. I fell in love with it immediately. Episodes like the Halloween episode, for sure, over the top, drew me in. I'm invested. But now that we're like into the second season, she's even asking me to watch Community because she's fallen in love with it all over again, even though she's seen it before. And it's episodes like the Halloween episode that really make it amazing. And I'm glad to see that shows like that are taking that, because that show has a platform for being ridiculous.
Yes.
And it's good.
Yeah. And it really embraces the ridiculous.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I was looking at some other like TV shows, things that like I really loved that had Halloween themed kind of episodes. And one that always kind of I go back to as well is The Office, because The Office had a few Halloween themed episodes. And I really liked The Office. I really liked the humor of kind of the cringy humor that is The Office.
Yes.
I love that. Like, I personally just really, really love that. But it was always when like they would do all the costume contests and Dwight would show up, with, like he comes in this crazy, crazy outfit, and, like there's this huge costume party and like they're going to, be judged and whatnot. But I love like the simplicity of Jim's character, where he just doesn't put any forethought into his costume. And, he writes book on his face and he's going as Facebook, or he puts the little 3 punches on and he's three-hole punch Jim. And I love that because for a lot of years there was times when I was like, I don't have time to make a costume. Let me just toss on a Ghostbuster t-shirt and I'll say I'm one of the Ghostbusters.
Nice. I might need to use one of those ideas for this year.
So I like little episodes like that where it's there, but maybe it's not like the Community ones where it's like way over the top, huge production, but yet it's still prevalent and there's a lot of, music, and they're talking about, listening to Monster Mash and all that kind of stuff. So
right. No, I dig it. It's funny though that you mentioned that because, like, I think probably my favorite show with longevity for Halloween stuff was The Simpsons.
Oh,
and that's the exact opposite of low production. The Simpsons, I mean, they did so well with their Halloween episodes. It sort of became like the episode that you didn't want to miss every year.
Yeah, Treehouse of Horror.
Oh man, and that stuff was over the top. They did the 3D animation, and they poured everything into that episode every year when it was popular. I don't think they really care much about that anymore. But it was good because I didn't really. I'm a communist apparently because I'm going to say this. I was never really a huge fan of The Simpsons.
Really?
The first couple seasons, great, but again, same humor, same style. It just kind of wears thin for me. But I would never have missed the Halloween episodes growing up.
I loved the Halloween episodes. Brought always, in my opinion, some of the best like little bits because there was always kind of like skits, right? Like it was 3 or 4 like little Halloween stories that were being told, whatever. But the one where Homer is basically reenacting The Shining.
Yes.
Is literally one of my favorite Simpsons moments of all times. It's
For
like,
sure.
No work and no play make Homer a something. She's like, then Marge jumps in. She's like, crazy. He's like, go crazy. He's like, don't mind if I do. Hoo, he, ha, hoo, ha, he, ha, ha. Love that.
Good times. But, yeah.
I think TV has a really easy time of saying like, hey, let's do a Christmas or a Thanksgiving or a Halloween type of episode. Like I said, I think they just can like slot them in and they know, oh, this is going to drop around this time every year. And for a lot of shows, it's easy to kind of, say, okay, let's do something along those lines. I think in more recent memory, Community does it best because they really like fully go all out on the theme of Halloween because they did another one in season 3 or season 4 that they kind of tell like horror stories, kind of like you tell like around a campfire. I'm not going to tell you anything more than that.
But I'm a late bloomer.
I'm not telling you anything more than that, but it is a great Halloween episode.
Nice. Now Halloween is my favorite time of the year. Like it's just a couple days away. But Morgana's stoked, and it for me, it's not for me dressing up or being a part of a theme. It's really about my kids. And I personally, I'm not into Halloween parties and all that kind of thing. But that being said, the enjoyment I have for going out trick or treating with my daughters is without question my favorite time of the year, except maybe opening gifts on Christmas morning when I've been able to really get the good, meaningful gifts. And
yeah. Are you trick or treating with Mo around here this year?
Oh yeah, for sure. Amber's actually going to come up and do that. We've always enjoyed that, and so yeah, we're going to go walk around with her and everything, and we'll be hitting your neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, hit me up when you're around because we're going to go to my mom's place early so they can kind of have dinner with my mom and then trick or treat her house. But then we're coming back here to our neighborhood, so because I'd like to see what Mo's dressed up as and that sort of thing. Yeah,
you bet. But so going back though, old school though, we have Community, we have Simpsons, we have The Office. It's still given its due every year, but the original, Force Majeure, the OG, the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Oh yes,
that is probably the only thing I have been able to watch every year when it comes around. From the time I was a kid, I loved that. I still love it. I love watching it with Morgana. The only other holiday thing that I've ever watched every time I've gotten a chance is Scrooged.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later this year. But the Great Pumpkin was just, it's classic Charlie Brown. It's got the message there, but it's also got like the disappointment. It's got the characters at their best. That was kind of ringing in Halloween. We showed
that to the boys this weekend for the first time.
Yeah?
They'd never seen it. They weren't super interested in it. But I also think that it's going to take a few repeat viewings and then they'll be
Yeah.
fine with it. Like, because that's how they were about the Charlie Brown Christmas special. They couldn't sit through it the first 2 or 3 times. Now they love it. They ask for it all the time.
Yeah, I never got into that one.
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite of the Charlie Brown specials.
My favorite Christmas thing, I think, for cartoons is Rudolph.
I want to be a dentist.
Right? Silver and gold, silver and gold. Yeah.
Let's be independent together.
Right. The
Anyway.
old Rankin and Bass. Yeah. I loved the Great Pumpkin growing up. It's one of those things where, for me, it's Linus, man.
Yeah.
Linus like steals like he's the one that has the faith and the belief in the Great Pumpkin and stays out all night. It kind of, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of How I Met Your Mother when you've got what's his face, the main character, Josh Radnor's character, Ted Mosby, who stays up on top of the roof waiting for the slutty pumpkin every year to come back. It's almost like the homage to Charlie Brown's Linus
Right.
waiting for the Great Pumpkin.
I would say that's not even refutable.
But yeah. Anyway, but we also have this kind of holiday thing that happens in video games too.
Yeah.
So over the weekend, I loaded back up Overwatch. I actually had to remove it because I ran out of space on my hard drive on my PS4. Because the holiday event is going on, which Blizzard is doing a Halloween theme, and if you can compete matches, you can get Halloween themed skins or spray paints or voice emotes. And I don't know, like, I kind of like that. Like, there is a different mode called Dr. Junkenstein's thing, and it's basically like kind of a tower defense. You basically just have to defend this area from all these bad guys and zombies, and it was different and was a lot of fun. And I enjoy that Blizzard puts in the time and effort to do stuff like that in their games.
Well, I think the thing with online play and especially MMOs is that you're not just adhering to a game rule set. You're also bringing in a social aspect to everything that's going on. So you almost have to recognize social structures within that. And holidays are a big thing that allow a game company to add dynamic content, because that's really what online gaming is about, is dynamic content. Things need to change, things need to evolve, especially in MMOs. So the opportunity to kind of tie into something that's going on in your life, that's a gimme, right? Holidays apply to large swaths of people on Earth at any given time. You're able to reach that many people with simply adding something into a game. The first one that I am aware of, and I could be wrong on this, but I was pretty early adopting into online play, especially with MMOs. I think the very first time I ever saw a Halloween event was in EverQuest in 2000.
Okay.
There was, and it may have even been 1999. I think it was 2000 though, because it was like right at the end of 1999 that EverQuest came out. Anyway, 1999, 2000, whichever. It was the first Halloween after the game had launched. One of the things about the game is that this is all kind of a high fantasy world, and you've got elves and dwarves and all that kind of stuff. But they also tie into these planes where the gods actually live. And there weren't many of these originally. And there was like the plane of hate and the plane of sky. And so there was a third plane that was going to be opening up called the plane of fear. And they opened it on Halloween night. And this was a zone that was permanently added to the game as of that evening. But it wasn't just that they added this new zone. The zone was Kithakor Forest, was the connecting zone where all this happened. And instead of just going and clicking on a thing and, hey, you're in a new zone, this zone already had a bunch of skeletons and things like that. So on that day, they changed the zone so that when it was nighttime, all these skeletons came out. And on Halloween night, every year from that point forward, these skeletons were not just your average level 2, level 3 monsters to go and fight. They became like these huge monsters that the highest levels of the game had to band together to get through them to be able to get to this new zone in. And they didn't even announce what they were doing except to say, Beware Kithakor Forest for the Dead Now Walk or something to that effect. So they didn't announce the opening of the zone. They didn't announce exactly what was going on, but word spread quickly. And this is when word spreading quickly was a really big deal because there were just a few websites. There was no major source for all compendium data everywhere. So this new zone comes up as a surprise. It's much more difficult. Newbies, this zone unfortunately connected to a newbie zone for the halflings. Characters were just dying and in-game chat is going off the rails. People are, rushing from everywhere they can to get to the zone, which was no small feat either because pretty much you had to walk over land. There was no teleporting or anything like that. And all to get there to defeat all these skeletons and to break into the plane of fear for the first time, which had a new god attached to it. This was a really big deal, and I loved how much effort that they put into that. Over the years, they added some other things like the scarecrows walking, further out from where they would. Maybe some GM events that kind of added to it. But this to me was like the first major breakthrough holiday thing that I had ever seen in an online forum and kind of propelled as a basis for all other games to come.
See, my first one was World of Warcraft.
Not to be understated.
Yeah, which definitely doesn't sound like EverQuest, because like EverQuest made it sound like it was an event because of the level of difficulty and, something that changed the world. Whereas World of Warcraft, we've kind of talked about as kind of that kind of carnival-y, kind of oversimplified theme park version of like a video game. And it's fantasy. But I remember going around and like we were walking around and it was like, kind of 2 weeks before Halloween, and someone tossed a pumpkin head on me. And next thing I know, I've got a pumpkin for a head. And I was like, what is this?
Nice.
I was like, this is kind of cool. And then, over the years, like you realize you can do these things. You can get kind of, Halloween type costumes, and you can get pumpkins to toss on people. And then they came out with the Mr. T Mohawk head. And that came out around the old Halloween one year. But what I like about Blizzard is, once again, like I said with Overwatch, man, they really know how to like dial in on the holiday stuff to really make it an event. Like you want to get in on all the days because you can do these things. And if you do all these things, like you can win. I remember one of the years we got like a witch's broom, like flying mount. Mm-hmm. And like, that was kind of a cool thing. I mean,
I have been doing that stuff the last week a bit.
Really? See, I haven't logged into WoW in like a month. So
the trouble I have with WoW stuff is that now it's become so ingrained in their calendar that there's almost always a holiday going on. Yeah. And the event of it is gone. But contrary to that, it is still something that's fun to do, and you don't want to miss those things. And there's always really cool things you can get. And if you're in a guild that cares about that stuff, you get some buddies together and you go knock some stuff out. Now you can actually as of a few years ago, you can actually join the Looking for Dungeon queue to fight the Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
The problem I see with that is that now it's become that's the only part of some of these holidays that people even do, when there's actually a lot more. There's like a Wicker Man thing that's going on with the Halloween thing. You can go around collecting all the buckets of candy. Right. You can make yourself sick with the candy and puke this
you can.
neon green puke that Ellie is very fond of. But it's there, and while it's not an event, it is reliable.
Right.
And these are things that you do every year. And they do pay homage to many holidays beyond that. They have a meta achievement that if you get certain achievements throughout most of the holidays, you can even get a Violet Proto-Drake.
Yep.
That takes you literally a year to get. And the only one I had missed the first time I went through that was Brewfest.
Oh.
So I had to wait a whole another year just to get those achievements. But I have my Violet Proto-Drake, and I'm actually rather proud of that.
I have a Violet Proto-Drake, and I missed something on the Christmas event one year, and I had to wait a whole year for it to come back around.
Yeah, but Halloween is definitely one of the big ones that they do, for sure.
Oh, for sure. It is really big.
And you see everybody with their pumpkin heads and their masks, and you can also get these wands where you can polymorph other people into things. And
yep. Yeah, they go all out. Like, Halloween is a big deal in World of Warcraft. There's a lot to do, and it's all fun, like you said, and we were kind of talking about. It's that amusement park kind of theme with that. There's just a lot of it that's, fun and silly and goofy, but it keeps people coming back for those big events. But Super Friends, I'm curious to know, like, what you come back for. Like, do you have certain TV shows that you look forward to, holiday theme? Like, do you look forward to a Halloween episode of your show? Do you look forward to some of these online games that have, like a Halloween event? Is that something that interests you? Because obviously, I think that they must be pretty interesting because we still see these happen time and time and time again every year.
Well, yeah, and I mean, looking at Community, the first time I saw that was immediately amazing.
Right, absolutely. So I want to hear from the Super Friends. Tell me, what do you think? Are you down with the Halloween-themed episodes and tie-ins and, video game kind of seasons or events? Or are you not and you'd rather see them go away? Let us know.
Or
second question.
Do you participate in any nerdy Halloween events yourself?
Ooh,
Are there any specific themed parties or anything kind of outside the norm? Or is there anything that you do that definitely taps into nerd culture in some way? And let us know.
Yeah. No, I almost want to hear that more now than the other idea. I'll put out both questions. We'll see what happens. But yes. Let us know, Super Friends. Get us in all the normal places, our Gmail, our Facebook, our Twitter, our voicemail. You know where to contact us. If you didn't, I already mentioned it just a few minutes ago.
Listen to the whole show again and get that contact info.
Yeah, go back and do it, man. Listen a couple times. Tell your friends and have them listen and then tell you where to go. Stu, it's been a fun yet scary, spooky episode 101. And I'm glad we're kicking off this next round of 100, talking Halloween to start.
This is just standard Fortress of Nerditude 101.
There you go.
College course in the bag.
All right. Well, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.
Woo!
Bum, bum, bum.
They did the mash. They did the monster mash. The monster mash.